Nothing says happy anniversary, quite like watching your husband's tongue explore his assistant's dental work in the company parking lot. 10 years of marriage to Weston Emerson had taught me many things. How to smile through his mother's passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, how to politely applaud when he won another corporate award for essentially moving money from column A to column B, and apparently, how to silently film an affair in progress while maintaining perfect camera stability. Future Oscar nomination for cinematography? Perhaps. I'm Pearl Emerson, 38, event planner extraordinaire. The woman who orchestrates flawless corporate gatherings where boring people in expensive suits pretend to enjoy each other's company. The irony of planning my own anniversary surprise only to receive one in return wasn't lost on me. Tuesday, October 15th started like any other day in our pristine Westchester County neighborhood. Autumn leaves perfectly arranged on manicured lawns as if the HOA had guidelines even for foliage placement. I had taken the afternoon off to prepare for our anniversary. 10 years of what I thought was matrimonial bliss, packaged in a 4,200 square foot colonial, with his and hers walk-in closets. The restaurant reservation at Luminaire had been secured 3 months in advance, because nothing says I love you like planning that far ahead to eat overpriced food. I'd even bought a new dress, something Weston had been subtly hinting at for months with comments like, "Don't you think it's time to refresh your wardrobe?" Translation: "Your current clothes make you look like someone's middle-aged aunt." I decided to surprise him at work, something I hadn't done in years. Why? Because I'm clearly a masochist, or, as my therapist would say, still invested in keeping the relationship fresh. Note to self, fire therapist. Driving into the gleaming Titan Technologies parking lot, I felt a flutter of excitement. The glass monolith where my husband made financial magic happen loomed ahead, catching the afternoon sun in a way that made it look like it was winking at me. Foreshadowing anyone? I spotted Weston's assigned parking spot, the one with the pretentious little sign reading W. Emerson, CFO, and his Tesla was there, but he wasn't in it. At least, not completely. 2 bodies were pressed against the driver's side door. One was definitely my husband. I recognized the overpriced haircut I'd paid for just last week. The other belonged to a woman I'd met at multiple company functions. Vanessa Maxwell, his 27-year-old executive assistant with legs longer than my patience. My brain cycled through reactions faster than Weston cycled through excuses when he forgot to take out the trash. Shock. Rage. An odd calculation of how much alimony I could get. And then, with the clarity of someone who's watched too many revenge movies, I did the only logical thing. I pulled out my phone and started recording in crystal clear 4K. Got to love technology, I whispered to myself, zooming in just enough to capture Weston's wandering hands on Vanessa's waist, the same hands that had given me a perfunctory peck on the cheek this morning before leaving for work. I recorded for exactly 47 seconds, long enough to establish that this wasn't just a friendly colleague hug gone awry, but not so long that I'd have to witness anything requiring eye bleach later. Then I did something truly inspired. I honked. Not a polite little "excuse me" tap, but a full-on, hand-pressed firmly to the horn symphony of interruption. They jumped apart like teenagers caught by parents, except teenagers would have shown more dignity. Weston's face performed an impressive transformation from passion to terror, his expression morphing into what I can only describe as man who suddenly remembers he has both a wife and a prenup with a fidelity clause. "Pearl," he squawked, his voice hitting a pitch I didn't know adult men could achieve. "What are you— this isn't—" I rolled down my window, smiled sweetly, and called out, "Hi, honey. Just thought I'd surprise you for our anniversary. Looks like surprises all around today." Vanessa had the audacity to straighten her blouse, as if that would somehow erase what I'd just witnessed. "Mrs. Emerson, this really isn't— Save it for your LinkedIn recommendation, sweetheart." I cut her off, my smile never wavering. Weston started walking toward my car, panic etched across his face. "Pearl, please, let me explain." That's when I did something that would make every wronged spouse in America proud. I put the car in reverse and said, loud enough for both of them to hear, "I already have your explanation, in 4K. Can't wait to show it at the company gala I'm planning next month." The look of pure horror on his face was almost worth the impending emotional trauma. Almost. I drove home with mechanical precision, my mind already formulating what happened next. Most people in my situation would cry, call their mom, or perhaps consume a bottle of wine. But I'm not most people. I'm the woman who planned President Rafferty's campaign fundraiser during a power outage without breaking a sweat. This was just another event to manage. The dismantling of a decade-long marriage. Walking into our house, the one with Weston's name first on the deed despite my down payment contribution, I went straight to our home office. Our anniversary dinner reservation would have to wait. I had more pressing matters to attend to, like downloading the video to 3 separate cloud storage accounts and our home server. Backup is important, kids. My phone started buzzing incessantly. Weston, of course, alternating between calling and texting increasingly desperate messages. It's not what it looks like. Please, let me explain. Where are you? We need to talk. I responded with a single text. Currently busy backing up the video to the cloud. Don't worry, I got your good side. Then I poured myself a glass of the ridiculously expensive scotch Weston had been saving for a special occasion, and sat down at my computer. As an event planner, I knew something fundamental about successful gatherings. Timing is everything. And revenge, like a good souffle, shouldn't be rushed. The annual Titan Technologies Gala was scheduled for November 18th, just over a month away. The theme I'd chosen, ironically enough, was transparency in business. Every executive would be there, including CEO Soren Hayes, Weston's boss and supposed best friend. The board members, the investors, all present to celebrate another year of record profits. And I, as the event planner hired specifically at Weston's recommendation, had complete control over the audio-visual elements of the evening. As I sipped Weston's scotch, I opened my planning document and made a new entry. Special presentation, honesty and leadership. Below it I typed, duration, 47 seconds. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my best friend Tess Holloway, who, conveniently enough, worked in the accounting department at Titan Technologies. You okay? Weston's running around the office like his hair's on fire, her text read. I smiled for the first time that day. I'm fine. Better than fine. In fact, I'm planning a presentation that's going to bring down the house. The game was on. And unlike my husband, I knew how to play to win. By the time Weston's Tesla pulled into our driveway that evening, I'd already ordered Thai takeout and changed into my comfiest loungewear. Not the cute kind, but the I've given up trying to impress you variety. Somehow eating pad thai in ratty sweats while plotting your husband's professional demise just hits different. The front door opened with that tentative creak that only accompanies someone who knows they're in deep trouble. Weston entered like a condemned man approaching the gallows, clutching, wait for it, a bouquet of roses that screamed, gas station impulse purchase. Pearl? His voice had that trembling quality usually reserved for people calling their credit card company about suspicious charges. Can we talk? I glanced up from my noodles, chopsticks poised midair. About what? Your pathological inability to keep your tongue in your own mouth? Or the fact that you bought me grocery store flowers on our 10th anniversary? He placed the sad bouquet on our imported Italian marble countertop, the one he'd insisted on during our renovation despite my preference for quartz. The roses slouched to one side like Weston's moral compass. What you saw today? He began. What I recorded today, I corrected, smiling sweetly while twirling noodles. He flinched. It's not a regular thing. Oh, so it's just an occasional thing? Well, that changes everything. I placed my container down with theatrical care. Here I was thinking you were having a full-blown affair, but if you're only intermittently betraying our marriage, I should probably be thanking you for your restraint. Weston sank onto one of our designer bar stools, the ones featured in Architectural Digest during that home spread he'd insisted on. It just happened, Pearl. Vanessa and I were working late on the Kendrick acquisition. Fascinating how working late translates to horizontal mambo in the parking lot. Harvard Business Review should do a feature. It was a moment of weakness, he continued, rubbing his temples in that way he did when trying to appear tortured and sympathetic, a move I'd seen him practice before board meetings. The stress of the merger, The long hours. I'm planning the president's charity dinner next month with a budget that was slashed in half, yet somehow I manage not to fall face first into my assistant's mouth. Crazy how that works. My phone buzzed. A text from Tess. Vanessa called in sick tomorrow. Soren's asking questions. You okay? I smiled at my phone, then looked up at Weston. Seems like Vanessa's experiencing some workplace discomfort. Must be going around. Weston's face paled. You haven't told anyone, have you? Define anyone. He stood up so fast the bar stool wobbled. Pearl, this could ruin my career. The board has a strict morality clause. If Soren finds out his best friend is sleeping with a subordinate half his age, yes, that would be unfortunate, wouldn't it? Almost as unfortunate as finding out your husband of 10 years is a walking cliché. I'll end it with her. Today. Right now. He pulled out his phone. I laughed. Not a cute chuckle, but the full-bodied laugh of someone who's crossed into a new dimension of disbelief. You think that's the solution? Sorry, honey, I'll stop cheating now that I've been caught? Do I have welcome tattooed on my forehead? The doorbell rang. We both froze. Expecting someone? Weston asked, hope flashing across his face like he thought it might be a marriage counselor I'd miraculously arranged in the past 2 hours. Actually, yes. I walked to the door, swinging my hips with renewed confidence. Standing on our porch, holding a bottle of expensive champagne, was Meredith Emerson, Weston's mother and my personal tormentor for the past decade. Surprise, she trilled, brushing past me without waiting for an invitation. I couldn't miss my favorite couple's anniversary. Weston's face achieved a new shade of white I'd previously only seen on paint swatches labeled Designer's Surrender. Mother, this isn't really a good time, he started. Nonsense. I drove all the way from Greenwich. She spotted my takeout containers. Oh, you're eating in? On your anniversary? Her tone suggested I'd committed a war crime. Change of plans, I said cheerfully. Weston had an unexpected performance at work today. Meredith's eyes narrowed as she sensed the tension. In 10 years of marriage, I'd never seen her miss an opportunity to blame me for any discord. What's going on? She looked between us suspiciously. I smiled, channeling her own passive-aggressive energy right back at her. Why don't you ask your son about his executive assistant? The one with legs up to her earlobes and apparently skills that extend well beyond administrative duties. Pearl! Weston hissed. Meredith's perfectly Botoxed forehead attempted to frown. What is she talking about, Weston? Nothing, Mother. Pearl and I are just having a disagreement about whether making out with your 27-year-old assistant in the company parking lot constitutes grounds for divorce. I pulled out my phone. Would you like to see the video? The lighting is excellent. The silence that followed was so complete, you could hear the ice melting in my abandoned drink. Meredith's face performed an Olympic-worthy routine of expressions, landing finally on something between horror and calculation. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, she said finally, her socialite training kicking in. These young assistants can be so aggressive these days. They see a successful man and just throw themselves. Save the victim-blaming script, Meredith, I cut in. Unless Vanessa has the ability to control Weston's hands, which were firmly planted on her backside, I don't think we can pin this on female aggression. Weston collapsed onto the sofa, head in hands. This isn't happening. That's exactly what I thought when I saw you playing tonsil hockey in broad daylight, I replied. Yet here we are. Meredith set down her champagne with the deliberate care of someone about to switch tactics. Pearl, dear, marriages go through difficult phases. When Weston's father had his indiscretion with his secretary. Wow, I interrupted, genuinely stunned. So that's where he learned it? Family tradition passed down like a recipe for betrayal soufflé? Weston's head snapped up. Dad cheated on you? Meredith waved dismissively. That's not the point. The point is, I forgave him, and we had 15 more years together before his heart attack. 15 years of what? I asked. Silent resentment? Checking his phone while he slept? Planning elaborate accidents that would look natural? Her lips thinned. Marriage requires sacrifice. I've sacrificed plenty, I said, surprising myself with the sudden emotion in my voice. I've sacrificed girls' nights to attend his boring work functions. I've sacrificed my dignity sitting through your holiday dinners where you critique everything from my career to my childless status. I've even sacrificed my own career advancement to move here for his promotion. I turned to Weston. But I won't sacrifice my self-respect. Not for you, not for this marriage, and certainly not to maintain appearances for the country club crowd. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Tess. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow morning. Soren's asking for financial records on all executive expenses. I smiled. Tess, bless her accounting heart, had wasted no time. As the head of financial compliance, she had access to all expense reports, including the ones showing Weston's numerous business dinners with Vanessa at hotels around the city. Something amusing? Meredith asked icily. Just the beginning of consequences, I replied. You know what they say. Karma comes after everyone eventually. Some people just need priority shipping. Weston lunged for my phone. What did you do? I stepped back, clutching my phone to my chest. Me? I didn't do anything, yet. But it seems the universe has Amazon Prime. His face contorted. You're trying to ruin me. No, sweetheart, I said with deadly calm. You did that all by yourself. I'm just making sure everyone gets the memo. Meredith stepped between us. This is getting out of hand. Whatever Weston did, destroying his career won't solve anything. Think about your future, Pearl. I am thinking about my future, I replied. For the first time in years, actually. And surprisingly, it looks brighter without a cheating husband and a mother-in-law who thinks infidelity is a family heirloom to be passed down through generations. I grabbed my keys from the counter. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a gala to plan. It's going to be a night everyone remembers, especially you, Weston. As I headed for the door, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Meredith? That champagne you brought? It's from 2019. A terrible year. Just like your son's judgment. I spent the night at Tess's downtown condo, the kind of sleek, minimalist space that screams, successful single woman who doesn't need to accommodate a cheating husband's golf trophies. We stayed up until 2 a.m., drinking wine that didn't come from Weston's precious cellar collection, and plotting with the methodical precision usually reserved for military coups or Taylor Swift stadium tours. You're sure about the expense reports? I asked Tess, who was cross-legged on her white sofa, laptop balanced on her knees. She nodded, scrolling through a spreadsheet that looked like the financial equivalent of a crime scene. 6 different business dinners at the Langham Hotel in the past 3 months. Room service charges for 2. Unless Weston suddenly developed multiple personalities who all needed their own breakfast, he wasn't dining alone. The Langham, I repeated, swirling my wine. That's where he said he was meeting potential investors from Chicago. Only investor he was meeting was in his assistant's career development, Tess muttered. Oh, and there's more. He's been transferring company funds to a private account. I nearly spat out my Cabernet. He's embezzling? Not technically. He's been moving his annual bonus into a separate account you don't have access to. Started exactly 2 years ago. 2 years. The timing hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. That was when I'd mentioned wanting to start our own event planning company. An idea Weston had dismissed as risky and impractical. Apparently, he'd been planning his own exit strategy while criticizing mine. The account has almost $400,000 in it, Tess continued. Enough for a fresh start with someone younger who doesn't remember you when you had a receding hairline and acid reflux from eating spicy food, I said, the bitterness in my voice surprising even me. My phone buzzed. Weston's 17th missed call of the evening, followed immediately by a text. Please come home. We can fix this. I showed Tess, who rolled her eyes with the expertise of someone who'd been witnessing bad male behavior since junior high. Translation: please come home so I can gaslight you into thinking this is somehow your fault for being too busy with your career. Or, please come home because Mother is still here and she's making me uncomfortable with her pointed questions about whether I've always been this stupid. We laughed, but mine felt hollow. 10 years of my life invested in a man who couldn't even cheat with originality. The CFO sleeping with his young assistant. It was like he'd ordered his midlife crisis from a catalog. Wednesday morning arrived with the crisp October clarity that makes you believe anything is possible, including elaborate revenge on a philandering spouse. I dressed in one of my power outfits, a perfectly tailored black pantsuit that I knew made me look both competent and unapproachable, the corporate equivalent of a do not disturb sign. "What's the plan?" Tess asked, handing me a coffee as we prepared to head to our respective offices. "First, I need to talk to Soren, before Weston spins this into me being the vindictive wife trying to ruin him over a misunderstanding." Soren Hayes, CEO of Titan Technologies and Weston's supposed best friend, had always treated me with the distracted cordiality of someone who views his executives' spouses as pleasant but unnecessary background characters. Today, that would change. I texted him directly. "Need to meet regarding the gala. Also have sensitive information about executive conduct that requires immediate attention." His response came within minutes. My office, 9:30. Titan Technologies headquarters loomed before me, all glass and steel and corporate ambition. Walking through the lobby felt like entering a gladiator arena, except instead of lions, I'd be facing down corporate politics and a husband who'd underestimated me for the last time. Several employees did double takes as I passed, word clearly having spread that something was amiss in the Emerson marriage. One brave soul, Jenkins from marketing, actually asked, "Everything okay, Mrs. Emerson? Weston seems distracted today." I smiled with all the warmth of an Arctic front. "Fascinating observation, Jenkins. Perhaps his conscience is weighing heavily on his libido." Jenkins turned the color of an overripe tomato and suddenly remembered an urgent meeting elsewhere. Soren's corner office offered a panoramic view of Westchester County, the kind of vista that makes powerful men feel even more powerful. He rose from behind his imposing desk when I entered, his expression a mixture of concern and calculation. "Pearl," he began, "I've called an emergency board meeting for 11 Dokao. Before we go in, I need to know exactly what's happening with Weston." I placed my phone on his desk and hit play without preamble. The video of Weston and Vanessa's parking lot rendezvous spoke for itself. Soren's face remained impressively impassive, the result of years negotiating with tech giants and venture capitalists. When the video ended, he sighed deeply. "How long has this been going on?" he asked, his tone measured. "The affair? Based on expense reports showing intimate dinners and hotel stays, at least 3 months. But that's not all." I pulled out the financial documents Tess had provided. "He's been hiding money, his bonuses, in a private account I didn't know about. Started 2 years ago." Soren studied the papers, his expression darkening. "This violates at least 2 clauses in his contract. The board will demand action." He looked up at me. "What do you want, Pearl?" The question caught me off guard. In all my anger and plotting, I hadn't actually formulated what I wanted as an outcome. Revenge, yes. Justice, absolutely. But the specifics? "I want what I've earned," I said finally. 10 years of supporting his career, of planning events that made this company look good, of being the perfect corporate wife. I want acknowledgement that I added value while he subtracted trust. Soren nodded slowly. "You've always been too smart for him." I told him that once at a Christmas party. He laughed it off. This revelation stunned me. "You knew that he didn't appreciate you? Everyone knew. That he was cheating? No. I wouldn't have tolerated that." He tapped the financial documents. "Or this." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Hayes, the board is assembling in the conference room, and Mr. Emerson is asking to speak with you urgently. Tell him I'm in a meeting," Soren replied. "We'll see him at 11 AO. He turned back to me. "The gala is next month. You're still planning it?" A slow smile spread across my face. "Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've been considering a special presentation about corporate transparency." Soren's eyebrow arched. "The board would normally need to approve any changes to the program. Or," I countered, "the CEO could authorize it as a special initiative." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "You know, Pearl, we have an opening in our corporate events division, director level. The previous person left to pursue other opportunities." "Is that so?" I kept my tone neutral, but my heart raced. The role oversees all company events globally. Requires extensive travel, creative control, and comes with significant stock options. He slid a folder across the desk. "Your qualifications would be Ideal. I opened the folder to find a job description with a salary that made my eyes widen. This wasn't just a job offer. It was independence. Freedom. The very thing Weston had discouraged me from seeking. Why? I asked simply. Because talent deserves recognition. And because I've been waiting for an excuse to restructure the executive team for months. Weston's been coasting on past performance while taking credit for other people's work, including yours. The pieces clicked into place. The real reason Weston had been so against my career advancement, it would have threatened his own carefully constructed image. The board meeting, I began, will determine Weston's future at the company, Soren finished. But regardless of the outcome, your opportunity stands. My phone buzzed with a text from Tess. Boardroom filling up. Weston looks like he's about to throw up on his Ferragamo loafers. I showed Soren, who actually chuckled. Shall we? He asked, gesturing toward the door. As we walked down the hallway toward the boardroom, I felt a strange sense of calm. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my worth. One more thing, I said, stopping just before the boardroom doors. About the gala presentation. The one about transparency? Soren's eyes gleamed with understanding. I'm thinking we should make it the centerpiece of the evening. Really drive home the company's commitment to ethical behavior. He nodded slowly. I believe that can be arranged. After all, nothing says corporate values quite like a real-world demonstration. As we pushed open the doors to face the board, and Weston, I couldn't help but think that sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the betrayal. It's rising from its ashes more powerful than before. The Titan Technologies boardroom resembled a luxury bunker, all mahogany panels and leather chairs, designed to make important people feel even more important while they made decisions affecting thousands of lives. Today, it would witness the corporate execution of one Weston Emerson, who sat at the far end looking like he'd swallowed a particularly spiky cactus. As Soren and I entered, all 14 board members turned in perfect synchronicity, like those horror movies where possessed dolls track you with their eyes. Weston half rose from his chair, then seemed to think better of it when he saw my expression, which I'd carefully calibrated to volcanic but controlled. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Emerson, greeted Eleanor Blackwood, the board chairwoman whose silver bob and perpetual scowl had terrorized underperforming executives for 2 decades. I understand we have some sensitive matters to discuss. Indeed, Soren replied, gesturing for me to take a seat directly opposite Weston. Mrs. Emerson has brought some concerning information to my attention regarding both personal and professional conduct. Weston's face performed an impressive color-changing routine, from ghost white to fire engine red in under 3 seconds. I can explain, he blurted. Eleanor raised one perfectly manicured hand. I believe we should hear the accusations first, Mr. Emerson. Professional courtesy. Professional courtesy. Something Weston had apparently forgotten existed while he was busy giving Vanessa her performance review in the parking lot. Soren nodded toward me. Pearl, would you like to begin? I smiled, the kind of smile that makes men instinctively protect their vital organs. I'd be delighted. I placed my phone on the table and connected it to the room's presentation system. Yesterday, I discovered my husband, your chief financial officer, engaged in an inappropriate relationship with his direct report, Vanessa Maxwell. Alleged relationship, Weston interjected desperately. Visual evidence suggests otherwise, I replied, pressing play. The 47-second video of Weston and Vanessa's parking lot passion played on the giant screen usually reserved for quarterly earnings reports. The room fell so silent, you could hear the collective tightening of 14 sphincters. One board member actually removed his glasses, cleaned them, and put them back on, as if better vision might somehow change what he was seeing. When the video ended, I continued with clinical precision. Beyond the obvious ethical violation of engaging with a subordinate, financial records indicate Mr. Emerson has been using company resources to facilitate this relationship. Tess, bless her accounting soul, stepped forward with copies of the expense reports. 6 separate occasions where Mr. Emerson charged the company for business dinners that were actually romantic rendezvous at the Langham Hotel, complete with room service for 2 and extended stays. Eleanor's scowl deepened to Death Valley proportions. Is this accurate, Mr. Emerson? Weston looked like a man watching his career plummet from the top floor of a very tall building. The expenses were legitimate business. Unless your business includes ordering champagne and strawberries at 11 p.m., I think we can all agree on what kind of business was being conducted, Tess interrupted, sliding specific receipts toward the board members. And there's more, I added, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Mr. Emerson has been diverting his company bonuses to a private account unknown to me, his spouse, for the past 2 years. While not technically embezzlement, it does raise questions about financial transparency and potential preparation for, shall we say, an undisclosed exit strategy. The board members exchanged glances that could only be described as sharks sensing blood in the water. These are serious allegations, Eleanor said, turning to Soren. What is your recommendation as CEO? Soren leaned forward. Our company values explicitly prohibit relationships between managers and their direct reports. They also mandate financial transparency from all executives. Given the evidence, I recommend immediate termination. Weston half rose again. This is ridiculous. 10 years of service to this company, and you're going to fire me over a momentary indiscretion? 6 hotel stays suggest your concept of momentary needs revision, Eleanor observed dryly. Perhaps your timekeeper needs calibration along with your moral compass. What about her? Weston pointed at me, desperation making him reckless. She's planning something for the gala, some kind of public humiliation. Ask her. All eyes turned to me. The gala, I said smoothly, will proceed as planned, with one minor adjustment. The theme of transparency in business will be emphasized through a special presentation highlighting the company's renewed commitment to ethical conduct. Mr. Hayes has already approved the changes. You're trying to destroy me, Weston hissed. I met his gaze steadily. No, Weston. I'm simply allowing your actions to have their natural consequences. Something you've avoided your entire privileged life. Eleanor cleared her throat. I believe we've heard enough. The board will deliberate privately. Mr. Emerson, please wait outside. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Emerson, you may stay. Weston stood, straightened his designer tie, the one I'd given him last Christmas, and walked out with all the dignity of a man whose pants were caught in an escalator. The deliberation took precisely 12 minutes. When Weston was called back in, Eleanor didn't bother with pleasantries. Mr. Emerson, your employment with Titan Technologies is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to clear out your personal items. Your company car privileges are revoked. Your stock options are frozen pending further review, and your final paycheck will reflect deductions for misused company funds. Weston swayed slightly, like a tree in the first stages of falling. You can't do this. I built half the client relationships this company depends on. Actually, Soren interjected, our client satisfaction surveys indicate it was your team that maintained those relationships, often despite your involvement, not because of it. Watching your husband's carefully constructed professional facade crumble is a unique experience, like seeing a wax figure melt in real time, revealing nothing beneath the surface. Pearl, Weston turned to me, his voice suddenly soft. Are you really going to let this happen? 10 years of marriage. 10 years, I repeated, during which you discouraged my career aspirations, hid money from me, and ultimately betrayed not just our marriage but your professional ethics. So yes, I'm really going to let this happen. In fact, I'm going to help it happen. I turned to the board. There's one more thing you should know. I've accepted Mr. Hayes' offer to become the new director of global events for Titan Technologies. I'll be overseeing all corporate functions worldwide, including, of course, next month's gala. The look on Weston's face was worth every second of the past 48 hours. Pure, unadulterated shock, followed by the dawning realization that I would now be employed by the very company that had just fired him. You planned this, he whispered. No, I corrected. I adapted to changing circumstances. Something you taught me was essential in business. Consider it the one valuable lesson I'm taking from our marriage. Security arrived with impressive timing. two broad-shouldered men in suits who flanked Weston with professional detachment. "Your office has been secured, Mr. Emerson," one of them said. "We'll escort you to collect your personal items." As Weston was led away, Eleanor turned to me with something almost approaching a smile. "Mrs. Emerson, or should I say, Director Emerson, I look forward to seeing what you do with the gala. Based on today's performance, I expect it will be memorable." "Oh, it will be," I assured her. Nothing says corporate reinvention quite like watching the old guard fall and the new guard rise. After the board members filed out, Soren stayed behind with me in the emptying boardroom. "Was it worth it?" he asked quietly. I considered the question. Justice usually is, though I suspect the real satisfaction will come next month at the gala. "About that," he said. "What exactly are you planning to show?" I smiled. "Nothing that happened today. That would be unprofessional and potentially actionable. Then, let's just say I've been collecting evidence of Weston taking credit for other people's work for years. Emails, presentation drafts, recorded meetings. The presentation will simply restore credit where it's due." Soren laughed. "Remind me never to cross you, Pearl." "That," I said, gathering my things, "is probably the smartest business decision you'll make all year." As I walked out of Titan Technologies that day, not as Weston Emerson's wife, but as their new director of global events, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a promotion, a corner office, and the satisfying knowledge that your ex-husband is currently explaining to his mother why he's unemployed, publicly humiliated, and facing divorce proceedings. And I hadn't even gotten to the gala yet. November 18th arrived crisp and clear. Perfect weather for career resurrection and ex-husband humiliation. The month following Weston's spectacular professional implosion had been eventful, to say the least. He'd moved in with his mother in Greenwich, a punishment that almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. Divorce papers had been filed faster than a YouTube copyright claim, with my lawyer discovering that secret account wasn't Weston's only financial sleight of hand. Turns out, when your soon-to-be ex's professional reputation is in tatters, his negotiating position weakens considerably. Meanwhile, my new office at Titan Technologies offered a view that made Weston's former space look like a storage closet. Soren had been true to his word. The director of global events position came with actual power. Not just a fancy title and expectations to order lunch for the real executives. The annual gala was being held at the Whitney Museum. My choice. Not the country club Weston had initially booked. 500 of the industry's elite gathered in designer formal wear, sipping champagne that cost more than some people's monthly rent, while pretending to care about the art surrounding them. I stood at the entrance in a crimson dress that had cost precisely 1 day of my new salary, greeting attendees with the confident smile of someone who had orchestrated not just an event, but a resurrection. "Pearl," Tess approached, stunning in midnight blue. "The place looks amazing. Very different from last year's snooze fest at the golf club." "Amazing what happens when you prioritize style over stuffy tradition," I replied, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. "Have you heard from him?" she asked, lowering her voice. "You mean besides the desperate settlement offers and the drunk text comparing me to Judas?" "Not recently." I sipped my champagne. Though I did hear from Meredith yesterday. Apparently, living with a 41-year-old unemployed son is straining her bridge club schedule. Tess snorted. "Karma really doesn't mess around once it gets going." Speaking of karma, I nodded toward the entrance where Vanessa Maxwell had just arrived, looking uncomfortable in a conservative black dress that screamed, "Please don't notice me." After Weston's firing, she'd been transferred to the accounting department. A lateral move that Tess assured me involved spreadsheets far less exciting than hotel bedspreads. The board had decided that firing her would look like victim blaming, but keeping her in executive administration would send the wrong message. Accounting purgatory was the compromise. "Should we say hello?" Tess asked with mock innocence. "I think my successful existence is greeting enough," I replied. The evening proceeded with choreographed precision. Dinner, speeches, awards. Then came the moment I'd been planning for weeks. Soren took the stage, adjusting the microphone with practiced ease. "Tonight's theme is transparency in business," he began. Recent events have reminded us that integrity isn't just a word on our mission statement. It's the foundation of everything we do. Subtle murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew about Weston's downfall. It had been the subject of industry gossip for weeks. To demonstrate our commitment to giving credit where it's due, I'd like to introduce our new Director of Global Events, Pearl Emerson, who has prepared a special presentation. I took the stage to generous applause, some genuine, some curious. The lights dimmed, and the presentation began. What followed wasn't the public humiliation of Weston that everyone expected. Instead, it was a masterclass in professional restoration. I showcased projects from throughout Titan's history, correctly attributing innovations to their actual creators, many of whom were middle managers or team members whose contributions had been claimed by executives like Weston. The presentation ended with a new company initiative, the Innovation Recognition Program, designed to ensure that good ideas were attributed to their sources, regardless of title or position. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, Eleanor Blackwood approached me. Her perpetual scowl softened to merely mild disapproval. Not what I expected, Director Emerson. Disappointed by the lack of bloodshed? I asked. Impressed by your restraint, she corrected. You could have burned it all down. Instead, you built something better. I smiled. Revenge is momentarily satisfying. Building a legacy lasts longer. Later that evening, as the party wound down and the last executives stumbled into their waiting town cars, I found myself alone on the museum's terrace, contemplating the Manhattan skyline, all glittering promise and sharp edges, much like my new life. Tess joined me, offering another glass of champagne. Penny for your thoughts? I was just thinking about something my grandmother used to say. When someone shows you who they are, thank them for the information. Wise woman. She also said men who cheat deserve to have their belongings set on fire. But her first saying was more quotable. We laughed, the sound carrying across the terrace into the November night. So what now? Tess asked. You've got the career, the settlement, the professional respect. What's next for Pearl Emerson 2.0? I considered the question, watching my breath form clouds in the cool air. I'm thinking Europe. Titan's London office needs an events overhaul, and I've never lived abroad. Running away? Strategic advancement, I corrected. Besides, I hear British men have much better accents when they inevitably disappoint you. 1 month later, I stood in Heathrow Airport with 2 suitcases and a carry-on containing the essentials: clothes, passport, and divorce papers signed by Weston, who had finally accepted that no amount of begging would undo the consequences of his actions. My phone buzzed with a text from Tess. Heard Weston's interviewing for a job in Minneapolis. Vanessa's not relocating with him. Shock of the century. Call me when you land. I smiled, tucking my phone away as I headed toward the taxi stand. They say living well is the best revenge, but I'd discovered something better. Living authentically. Weston had done me a favor, really. In trying to diminish me, he'd set me free. And that, unlike his fidelity, his financial honesty, or his professional ethics, was something I could genuinely thank him for.
After the animal rescue mission from the California wildfire, I flew home earlier than planned, without telling my husband, to cook an anniversary dinner for our 8th wedding year. I tiptoed step by step toward the living room window, only to suddenly hear my husband's best friend's young child call him Daddy, while the child's mother kissed my husband and said, "Michael, you really are a wonderful father." That scene left me frozen in place. They were celebrating the birthday of a child unrelated to me in the very house I paid for. I quietly recorded a video and left. The next morning, my husband came to my workplace and yelled, "What horrible things you did last night." My name is Michelle, 35 years old, a veterinarian and owner of Harbor Light Animal Clinic in Cambridge, Boston. After nearly 3 consecutive weeks in California, helping rescue animals injured in the wildfires, the mission ended 3 days earlier than expected, and I decided to fly home that very afternoon. I booked a noon flight from San Francisco to Boston, set to arrive early in the evening. I wanted to be home before Michael could find out, to prepare dinner for our 8th wedding anniversary. I paid extra to upgrade to business class, just to come home a bit sooner, just to see his smile when I stepped through the door with a small gift in hand. Throughout the flight, I thought of him, of his favorite dinner, the red stew I learned to cook just for him, of the burgundy bottle we'd been saving for a special occasion. I pictured him opening the door, surprised, then smiling. In my suitcase was a special gift, a silver necklace engraved with a wolf's paw, symbolizing loyalty, which I picked out after a successful surgery on an injured old dog in California. I believed it would be the perfect gift for a perfect anniversary. But life is rarely as perfect as we imagine. When the Uber dropped me off in front of our quiet neighborhood in Cambridge, I saw a silver sedan parked outside the house. That car, disturbingly familiar. I looked through the window and felt my chest tighten. It was Tiffany's Honda, Michael's close colleague and friend, a third-grade teacher at the nearby elementary school. I remembered clearly, just yesterday morning, Tiffany had posted on Instagram that she'd be attending a 3-day teacher conference in Worcester. So why was she here, while I hadn't even returned home yet? A cold intuition made me ask the driver to drop me off at the end of the street. I quietly walked to the house, carrying the small gift box. The closer I got, the clearer the voices and laughter from inside became. Warm, intimate, familiar, but not meant for me. Through the slightly open door, I saw Michael blowing out candles with a little girl. The child called him Daddy, in a voice so innocent and bright, and he smiled, lifted her into his arms, kissed her hair, and said in that sweet voice I once believed was meant only for me, "Daddy's here, sweetheart." I stood frozen. The air around me felt frozen too. The gift box nearly slipped from my hand. I caught it with the other. I saw Tiffany, in a light blue floral dress, standing next to him, her gaze tender and intimate in a way that needed no explanation. On the table was a birthday cake with the words, "Happy Birthday, Lisa." And Lisa was Tiffany's 3-year-old daughter. The one I'd once noted had the same blue eyes as my husband. I used to think they were just close friends, that Michael was only helping Tiffany because she was a single mom. But now, hearing Daddy again, I understood everything. That child was calling my husband her father. I stepped back, then again, trying not to let anyone hear my broken breathing. I turned and hurried to the gate, heart pounding like it would explode. I don't remember calling the Uber, only that I sat inside it, headed to my clinic, moving on instinct. When I arrived, I sat in silence in the empty room. The white light reflected on the walls. The sterilizer machine hummed steadily, like the heartbeat of someone barely alive. I opened my phone, went on Facebook, scrolled through Tiffany's posts. There were photos of Lisa learning to talk. Tiffany wrote, "She just said, 'Mama!'" "She's so adorable beneath it," Michael had commented. "She's adorable like her mom." I had once scrolled past it without a hint of doubt. Now, all the pieces fit. Looking back at the timeline, I realized Lisa was born 4 years ago. The same time Michael often came home late, sometimes 1 or 2 in the morning, sometimes not at all, texting, "Tiffany's not okay. She just broke up. I'm afraid she might do something reckless." I used to think he was kind, compassionate. I was touched by my husband's empathy. But perhaps, back then, kindness had already become betrayal. I once believed our marriage was built on honesty, but now I see. Michael had betrayed me with the woman he called his best friend. I don't hate Tiffany the way I hate him. To me, she's just a lonely woman who went too far. But Michael, the man I once called my soulmate, he's the one who stabbed me with the very trust I gave him. I opened the notebook on my desk. The first page still had a list of vaccines for cats. I turned to a new page, picked up my pen, and wrote the first line. If loyalty had a shape, then today it shattered. I looked up, out the window where the early winter rain had started to fall. In that moment, I knew I would not let this pain pass like a memory. I would strike back, and I would reclaim justice for myself. Out there, Boston's lights were flickering on, but inside me, nothing was clear. I knew I had just witnessed something unforgivable, but I couldn't let him know I knew. I needed the truth, needed evidence, not just emotions. I picked up my phone, opened the chat with Michael, and tried to sound as normal as possible. The rescue ended earlier than expected, but I might have to stay a few more days to wrap things up. If I finish early, I'll catch the red-eye flight home, message sent. My heart thudded. Just 15 seconds later, he replied, "That's great news. I miss you so much. Once you've rested, let's do a belated anniversary dinner." I looked at the screen, a bitter smile creeping onto my face. He was still playing the perfect husband, as if last night he hadn't laughed with another child in this very house. The next morning, I returned home in silence. Michael had already left. On the kitchen counter were 2 mugs, his usual coffee, and another with a faint lipstick mark. I looked around. Nothing was messy. Everything was too perfect, too clean, like my life had been erased from it. I opened the drawer where he usually kept his wallet and car keys. A small piece of paper stuck out. I pulled it free. A folded receipt. Teddy's Toy Emporium, white wool stuffed teddy bear, $127, September 12th. September 12th. He had told me he was in New York meeting investors. I remember he video called me, smiling, saying, "I miss you." My hand shook. There was no more doubt. I sat down, opened my laptop. The screen cast a cold blue light on my face. I created a new document, typed 3 words in all caps, "Justice Plan." I snapped a photo of the receipt, saved it into the first folder, named Day of Betrayal 1. Then I opened my notes and listed every detail. Tiffany's license plate, Michael's work hours, the late-night meetings he claimed were urgent. One by one, the puzzle pieces began falling into place. At 10:55 a.m., a loyal client came in with her elderly cat, Mrs. Whitmore, a retired lawyer I deeply respect. As I administered the shot, she looked at me and said softly but firmly, "My dear, your eyes say more than you realize. Something's wrong, isn't it?" I smiled, trying to cover it up. "No, just a bit tired." She nodded slowly and said, "Women only say tired when they're holding it all in. If you suspect someone, don't confront them without proof. Justice always sides with the patient." I stuck to the plan, not letting him know I was in Boston. At 3 p.m., just after finishing a minor surgery at the clinic, I texted Michael, keeping the tone of a wife still far away. "I'm wrapping up paperwork here in California. Might be a late one. How have things been at home?" He called back immediately. His voice was warm and familiar, so much so that if I hadn't known better, I might have believed him again. "Everything's fine. Don't worry about a thing. I've just been busy with work stuff. Oh, and I stopped by Tiffany's last night. She's not doing great again." I gripped the phone tightly. Last night was the night I stood outside the door, hearing a child call him Daddy. 1,000 questions burned in my throat, but I swallowed them down, letting out only a measured touch. "You and Tiffany. Is there something going on that makes you go over there so often?" He paused for a beat, then let out a perfectly crafted sigh, laced with wounded sincerity. "Are you doubting me, Michelle? You know Tiffany once had suicidal thoughts after her breakup. I just don't want her doing anything drastic. I thought you understood my heart. I let the silence linger, listening to the low hum of the air conditioner through the line like it was reminding me to stay calm. Then I spoke, slow and dry. I'm not doubting. I'm just asking. If you're truly just helping, then that's good. Thank you for trusting me, he said softly. Come home. We'll talk things through. I love you. The call ended. I stared at the dark screen, my chest tight and hollow. Was I angry? Yes. But more terrifying was that I no longer wanted to argue. Not yet. Not without proof. That night, alone in the clinic office, I opened our joint bank app and reviewed recent transactions. The words appeared like a black ink stain. Transfer, $2,000. Recipient, Tiffany M. Note: Take care, birthday. 2041. I leaned back in my chair, hearing my heartbeat in every harsh thud. 8:41 p.m. Right after that call with me, he sent her money, with a note that read, Take care. I screenshot the transfer and saved it to the Justice Plan folder. Transfer 2000 Tiffany 2041 PNG. I reopened the photo of Tiffany's silver car outside the house and added it to the evidence log. The pieces were falling into place. I searched my contacts for Mildred Harper, divorce attorney, a former client who once brought in her beagle for vaccines. I typed a quick email, attaching the teddy bear receipt and the screenshot. Dear Mildred, this is Michelle from Harborlight Animal Clinic. I urgently need legal consultation regarding marriage and finances, possible infidelity, transfers from joint accounts to a third party, and procedures for requesting DNA testing. Attached are 2 initial pieces of evidence. I want to proceed lawfully and quietly until I have a complete file. Thank you. The send button turned gray. I rested my forehead against the back of my hand. Outside the clinic window, Boston glowed like a chessboard, each lit square a story no one else knows. On the desk, the Justice Plan notebook lay open. I added a new line. Day of Betrayal. 2. The first lie has been recorded. The distance between pity and complicity is just one excuse. I turned off the lights. In the dark, I heard something faint, the sound of trust falling to the bottom of my heart, and I knew, from this moment on, every road would lead to the truth. I barely slept that night. I lay curled on the small sofa in my clinic office, listening to the rain tapping on the roof and the wind slipping through the window frame. At first light, I brewed a strong black coffee, opened my laptop, and began combing through our joint account. Michael still believed I was in California. He had no idea I was less than 10 kilometers away, here in Cambridge, working on a plan taking shape. In the transaction history, a long list of unusual expenses appeared, like puzzle pieces I'd never seen before. Maple Leaf Elementary tuition, $3,800. Kids Planet Toy Store, $215. Happy Moments Birthday Photo Studio, $640. All notes repeated one name, Lisa. I opened my notebook and began building a timeline, left column for transaction dates, right column for the excuses Michael had given. Business trips. September 12th. White teddy bear. Meeting investor in New York. November 4th. Maple Leaf tuition. Trip to Dallas. December 21st. Birthday photo shoot. Year-end meeting in Chicago. Each line matched chillingly. For 4 years, every night I stayed up saving the lives of helpless creatures. He was raising another family, with the money I earned. Near noon, my phone buzzed. A reply from Mildred Harper, the lawyer I had emailed the night before. Michelle, I've reviewed your materials. This is a clear case of infidelity and financial abuse. Do not confront him yet. Keep gathering evidence, statements, transfers, invoices. every expense. I recommend preparing a divorce petition and a DNA test request. Stay calm, keep him unaware. Justice takes time, but we will get it. I read the email 3 times, then typed back. Understood. I'll gather more over the next few days. He won't suspect a thing until it's too late. 30 minutes later, I sent Michael a short message, setting the next piece in motion. I'm back in Boston. Tired, but okay. I think I'll stay home for a few days before returning to work. Within 5 minutes, he replied, So happy to hear that. I'll come home early tonight. I want to make things right, Michelle. I looked at the screen. A faint smile crossed my face. He still thought I'd just arrived. He had no idea I'd seen everything. That evening, Michael came home earlier than usual. He brought tulips, the flowers I used to love, but now only felt like a chokehold. He smiled, wrapped his arms around me from behind. His cologne hadn't changed, familiar enough to make my chest ache. I'm sorry I haven't been more attentive, he whispered. You've been so tired. What if we took a weekend in Maine? I turned to him, smiling lightly, voice calm as air. Sounds nice. I could use a break, too. He took my hand, looked deep into my eyes, and I saw a man who could act down to the last detail. I only nodded. I had to pretend. Mildred's advice echoed. Don't confront him without enough evidence. While he showered, I opened my phone, captured the latest bank statement, and emailed it to Mildred. In the notes, I typed, This month shows a new $5,200 transfer to account HM. Coincides with Maple Leaf tuition. Likely Tiffany Morgan. I saved a copy, turned off the screen. Michael stepped out of the bathroom, hair still damp, wearing that familiar half-smile. The smile that once made me love him, and now left me hollow. Thank you for believing in me, he said. I promise, everything will be okay. I only nodded. That night, while he slept, I lay still, phone glowing under the covers, and wrote one more line in the justice plan. He says he loves me with words. But he pays for another love. And money doesn't lie. Outside the window, Boston's rain returned. In the soft yellow glow of the lamp, I looked at the man lying beside me and knew that from now on, every breath he took was part of my plan. 3 days later, Michael told me to dress up for his firm's fundraiser, a high-profile event for major investors in the financial sector. He said it was a chance for us to show up as a couple again after such a busy time. And I understood instantly. He needed the mask of a happy marriage. I chose a fitted long black dress, paired with the ivory silk shawl he'd gifted me for our 3rd anniversary. Everything was curated, from outfit to smile. As we stepped into the grand lobby of the Fairmont Copley, hundreds of crystal glasses sparkled under golden chandeliers, soft jazz weaving between murmured conversations. He placed his hand on my back and whispered, You've always been the best part of my life. I smiled faintly. A good liar always sweetens the blade. The event began. Michael mingled with groups of guests, shaking hands, laughing, proudly introducing me. This is Michelle, my biggest supporter through every step of my career. Everyone looked at us like a perfect couple. I smiled politely, listening quietly, feeling the invisible cracks beneath the polished surface. And then I saw her. Tiffany, in a pale violet dress, her hair softly curled, wearing a silver star brooch. She entered the hall like a guest of honor, name badge in hand. Tiffany Morgan, community education consultant. I nearly laughed. Consultant? She had just been promoted in Michael's new narrative, his sponsored project. Michael saw her, and for a split second, their eyes met. Something electric passed between them, long enough for me to recognize a look he never gave me. She nodded. He gave a subtle nod back. But just minutes later, they clinked glasses and exchanged a warm smile, the kind shared by two people who've known more than wine. I held my champagne glass, stepped toward the back of the hall, and gently opened my purse. Beneath tissues and lipstick, my phone was recording. I aimed the camera in their direction, pretending to check messages while it captured every second of Michael and Tiffany's interaction, the smile of two people who knew exactly who they were deceiving. I didn't drink another drop. I just stood there, watching, reminding myself, sometimes justice doesn't come from courtrooms, but from the moments people think no one's watching. When the event ended, Michael held my hand, flashes going off around us. "Thank you for being with me tonight," he said. I answered softly, "That's what a wife's supposed to do, right?" He nodded, not realizing that sentence was double-edged. That night, after he fell asleep, I pulled out my phone, plugged it in, and replayed the 2-minute video. In the glowing light of the ballroom, Michael and Tiffany's faces were clear. Their eyes, their distance, their smiles, all spoke the truth. I clipped a short segment, emailed it to Mildred with a brief note. First piece of evidence. The screen blinked. Sent successfully. I stared at those words for a long time, then closed the laptop. Outside the window, city lights reflected on the glass, casting my shadow back at me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I was coming back, not as a wife, but as the woman rewriting her own justice. The next morning, I arrived at Mildred's office in downtown Boston. A light rain was falling, mist veiling Beacon Street like a gray curtain. I walked in, carrying the USB drive with the footage from last night's fundraiser. Mildred was waiting in her small office full of divorce files, her gaze firm yet full of empathy. I sat down, my hands still cold, but my voice steady. "I'm ready now, Mildred." "Enough is enough." She nodded, plugged the USB in, and watched the short video. The glow of the screen lit up her stern face. After a few silent seconds, she said slowly, "This is more than clear. We'll begin divorce proceedings immediately, and I want you to request a DNA test to confirm that child is Michael's. If so, he can be charged with concealing a dependent and financial misrepresentation." I listened to every word, like hearing the war drums at the start of a true battle. That same morning, Mildred helped me file the official divorce petition with the Suffolk County Court. The packet was over 10 pages long, with all evidence attached: bank statements, transfers, receipts, the video. I signed my name at the bottom, my pen shaking slightly, but the stroke resolute. That afternoon, Mildred contacted the Massachusetts Child Support Enforcement Agency, reporting suspicions of Michael hiding a child, an act subject to civil charges and severe penalties. I sat across from her, watching each fax go out, my heart pounding yet strangely relieved. Every sheet sent peeled back another layer of his mask. But Mildred knew that to win, I'd need more than paperwork, visual evidence. She referred me to Joseph Turner, a private investigator she'd worked with on high-stakes financial divorce cases. That afternoon, we met at a small cafe near the Charles River. Joseph was in his 40s, tall, quiet, eyes sharp as blades. After my brief summary, he asked only one question. "What level of evidence are you after?" "Suspicion or certainty?" I answered clearly, "Certainty and legal." 2 days later, I received an email from Joseph. Subject line, "Initial observations." He wrote concisely, with attached photos and a detailed report. Michael left his office at least 3 times this week during lunch. around 12:10 to 1:45 p.m. He drove to Riverview Place Apartments in Somerville, where Tiffany Morgan resides. He parked in the garage and went up to apartment 307. He stayed about an hour and a half, then returned to work by 2 p.m., as if coming back from a client lunch. I opened each photo. Undeniable. Michael stepping out of his car, holding a paper bag from a nearby bakery, smiling as Tiffany opened the door. Pictures of them leaving the unit together, her walking him to the parking lot, brushing his shoulder before he walked away. Joseph concluded, "The visits are consistent every Tuesday and Thursday." This constitutes repeated infidelity. I stared at the images, no longer in pain, only cold and resolved. The man who said he was meeting clients had been spending lunch breaks cheating. I saved all the photos to the Justice Plan folder, carefully numbered. That night, I sent them all to Mildred, along with this note. "Mildred, here is direct evidence. He meets Tiffany twice a week during lunch. Enough for court." Her response came almost instantly. "Good. I'll prepare the supplemental file. From now on, Michelle, every step you take is protected by law. We won't fight with pain anymore, but with evidence." I looked out the window. The Boston sunset reflected off the Charles River, staining the sky red. I breathed deep and whispered to myself, "He once used time to hide his lies. I'll use every minute now to bury them." The next morning, Michael left early as usual. He kissed my cheek, said he had an important meeting. I simply nodded, silently watching him fade out the door. Once I heard his car pull away, I reached for my phone. I opened my contacts, saw his name on screen, then called. My voice was so calm, it surprised even me. "Can we meet this afternoon?" "At River Bean Cafe, near your office. I want to talk." There was a pause on his end. Then he replied, as gently as ever, "Sure." "But why not wait till tonight and talk at home? You just got back. I want to cook dinner for you." I smiled, keeping my tone flat. "No need. I prefer talking outside. Too many things at home keep us from saying what we really mean." He hesitated a second, then agreed. "All right." I want us to talk seriously, too. That afternoon, I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a window seat where sunlight streamed across my steaming cappuccino. I sat quietly, opened my bag, double-checked the evidence on my phone. When Michael walked in, wearing a white shirt and navy tie, the same smile on his face, it was as if nothing had ever happened. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that once thrilled me, now cold as glass. We sat. He talked about new projects, maybe starting his own fund. I let him speak, let him settle into his polished husband role. When he paused, I slid my phone across the table, opened a video file. On screen appeared a dim shot of our living room. Yellow lights, a birthday cake, and a child's voice rang clearly. "Daddy?" Then Michael's voice, tender and sweet to the bone. "I'll always be here." Michael froze. He stared at the screen, then at me, face draining of color. "Michelle, when did you film this?" I didn't answer. I set down my cup, voice low and steady. "That night. When you blew out candles with another woman's child. In my house." He swallowed hard, tried to steady his tone. That was Lisa. You know her. Tiffany asked me to watch her sometimes. I said that to comfort the girl. I didn't want her feeling unloved. Michelle, she doesn't deserve to be hurt." I laughed, but it came out sharp as broken glass. "Doesn't deserve to be hurt? You're saying that to me? Do you know what truly doesn't deserve pain, Michael?" A wife's trust. I took an envelope from my bag, unfolded documents. Teddy bear receipt dated September 12th. Maple Leaf tuition statements. Transfer proof to Tiffany Morgan. And the photo from the fundraiser where he toasted with her in the hotel lobby. I laid each one on the table, voice even and cold. Here's the tuition you paid. Here's the toy you bought on the day you said you were in New York. And here, the moral man, toasting with his mistress at a company event. He couldn't speak. I saw his throat twitch, hands shaking as he stared at the evidence. Finally, he lowered his head, voice rough. I'm sorry. Michelle, I messed up. I was stupid, cowardly. I didn't know it would go this far. It's all my fault, mine alone. I looked at him, no longer the man who was once my whole world, but just someone who had lost the game he rigged. I said softly, eyes fixed on my cooling coffee. You have 24 hours to leave the house. After that, my attorney will contact you. Don't try to appeal to emotion anymore, Michael. I have proof, and I have the law. He looked up, eyes drained, not angry, just a man who'd lost everything. I stood, placed cash on the table, and said quietly, without looking back, Thank you. Because of you, I learned how to trust myself. I walked out, leaving behind a man bowed in silence. Outside, the wind stirred, coffee scent mingling with autumn leaves. I opened my phone and texted Mildred. It's done. He confessed, ready for the next step. I turned off the screen, stood to leave. But just as my hand touched the door, Michael's voice called from behind, no longer trembling or regretful, but cold and bitter. If you think you can take me down that easily, you're wrong. I'll hire the best attorney in Boston. That house, your clinic, they're marital assets. You won't keep anything. I paused a second, turned to face him. His eyes no longer held guilt, but fear of losing control. I replied softly, but loud enough. Then try me, Michael. This time, the law is on my side. I turned, pushed open the door, and stepped out. Behind me, his heavy breathing dissolved into the cold wind. Outside, Boston was foggy, the streetlights reflecting off the Charles like 1,000 mirrors, revealing a woman who had just stopped being afraid. That evening, the house was eerily quiet. After the confrontation at the cafe, Michael hadn't dared return. I sat in front of my computer with only the ticking wall clock and the soft rain brushing against the window as company. I opened the browser, the cursor blinking in the search box. Boston Women's Forum, Marriage and Family section. I logged in with an anonymous account named The Vet's Wife. With trembling fingers, I typed, not with rage, but with the stillness of someone who had seen everything. My husband is a successful man in finance. He speaks of ethics, trust, and family, all while secretly betraying me for 4 years with the woman he called his best friend. They have a child together, while I was still clinging to the belief that our marriage could be saved. I'm not looking for pity. I just want other women to know, when a man says he's meeting a client, sometimes he's just with someone else. I reread the post, then hit submit. Within minutes, hundreds of views. An hour later, over 5,000. Comments poured in. Women sharing similar stories, words of support, others outraged on my behalf. One wrote, "Is he with Brightfield Capital? I heard of a CEO who preaches ethics but lives a lie." Another chimed in, "Sounds like Michael R., always speaking at those investment seminars." If it's him, what a fraud. I didn't reply. I just watched the comments scroll by, feeling both chilled and liberated. I didn't need to name him. The truth was speaking for itself. By morning, the post had spread to Twitter and Reddit. From an anonymous story, it had become a hot topic in Boston's finance circles. Memes mocking the hashtag #ThePerfectCEO flooded timelines. Quotes from Michael's talks on professional integrity were turned into jokes. By noon, I got a message from Tiffany. "Michelle, please, stop! I'm about to be suspended. The school is investigating. Lisa is still a child. She'll be hurt. Please think of her." I read it, then locked my phone. I didn't hate Tiffany, but I owed her nothing. They chose this path. I was just shining a light where they tried to keep it dark. That same afternoon, Mildred called. Her voice was calm but pleased. "Michelle, the news is spreading faster than I thought. Brightfield's investors are demanding an internal audit. They want to know how much Michael spent on undocumented expenses. Shall I submit the bank statements?" I replied quietly, "Do it. I want it all out in the open." That night, Michael came home. His shirt wrinkled, tie loose. He threw his keys on the table, eyes frantic. "What did you do, Michelle?" "The office is a mess. Investors are threatening to pull out. Do you want me to lose everything?" I looked at him, expression steady, unshaken. "No, Michael. I didn't do anything. You did." 4 years ago, he fell silent, bit his lip, and walked out. The door clicked shut, leaving only his fading cologne in the air. I sat down, opened my anonymous post. Over 12,000 shares. No names needed. All of Boston knew. I opened the Justice Plan notebook and wrote one more line. Sometimes, to expose darkness, you just have to turn on a small light. The glow of the screen lit my face, no longer that of a betrayed wife, but of a woman who had made the liar tremble before the truth. 2 days after the post, I did nothing more. I didn't need to. Once the truth had been revealed, it found its own way forward. I only took calls from Mildred and waited to see how justice would unfold. That morning, Mildred called me from her office. Her voice was firm, tinged with quiet satisfaction. "The court has granted the DNA testing request, Michelle. Preliminary results will be in within 2 weeks. Also, the Child Support Services Agency has issued a temporary freeze on Michael's personal accounts for financial obligation verification. I've also submitted the statements you gave me. The transfers to Tiffany will definitely be investigated." I listened, filled with a strange calm. "Thank you, Mildred." At last, the law is beginning to speak. That afternoon, I stopped by Maple Leaf Elementary, where Tiffany teaches. I wasn't there to confront her, only to leave an anonymous envelope in the principal's mailbox. Inside was a printed copy of the now viral article, along with a handwritten note. "A teacher at this school may be involved in an ethical scandal that could affect the institution's reputation. No signature was needed." I just walked away, quietly, as if I had never been there. That evening, the first message arrived. An acquaintance from the parent group wrote to me. "Tiffany got called in by the principal." "She's panicking. Might be suspended." I read it without trembling. I wasn't seeking revenge. I simply stopped protecting a lie. The next morning, the media started picking up the story. The headline on Boston Finance Weekly read, "Brightfield Capital faces ethical crisis. Senior fund manager accused of misconduct and personal scandal." Beneath it was a picture of Michael in a suit, smiling confidently at an investment conference. The comments below the article were merciless. "Ethical investing, hypocritical living, the paradox of modern Wall Street." If he couldn't keep his wife's trust, how can he manage our money? That afternoon, Mildred sent me a photo of an internal memo from Brightfield Capital. "The board has decided to suspend Mr. Michael R., senior portfolio manager, pending audit and internal investigation." I read the words "suspend from duty" twice, then smiled. "Finally, someone is holding him accountable," I whispered. That night, Tiffany sent me another message, longer than any before. Michelle, you've won. I've lost everything. Please, I'm begging you, stop. Lisa's not at fault. I just want to raise my child in peace. I stared at the screen, not responding. There was no need to. Society, public opinion, and justice were finishing what I had started. When I closed the laptop, I reopened my Justice Plan notebook. The final line of the day, I wrote in small, steady script. When justice begins to work, I don't need to scream. I just need to stand still and let the truth speak for me. Outside, the autumn wind swept through the window frame, carrying the scent of light rain and the distant echo of car horns. Boston had never felt so peaceful, at least not to me. 3 weeks later, with the scandal still making headlines, I decided it was time to close the chapter. Not with silence, but with truth made public. I booked a table at the Grand Ivy, a restaurant by the Charles River, where we once celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. This dinner wasn't just a gathering of friends. It was my final trial, one where justice didn't lie in a judge's hands, but in the eyes of those who had once believed in us. I sent invitations to our closest mutual friends, and to both Michael and Tiffany. In the note, I kept it brief. This is a farewell dinner. Come if you still believe in the truth. That night, the Grand Ivy Banquet Hall shimmered in golden light, crystal glasses glittering under chandeliers. I arrived early, wearing a long black dress, hair neatly pinned, makeup soft but sharp. When I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the woman who cried in the dark. I saw someone who had turned pain into power. One by one, my friends arrived. The Whitleys, Jenny and Mark, a few colleagues from the vet clinic. At last, Michael walked in, Tiffany by his side, their faces tense, trying to maintain composure. I smiled and welcomed guests as if nothing had happened. As dinner neared its end, I rose gently and lifted my glass. Thank you all for coming. Tonight, I won't say much. I just want to share one thing. The truth sometimes needs light, and tonight, I want to shine that light. The room fell silent. I signaled the tech staff. The large screen at the back lit up. The image appeared, the very video I had recorded that night in my own living room. Lisa's voice rang out, innocent and clear. Daddy? Then Michael's, warm and affectionate. I'll always be here. A few gasps. Some covered their mouths. All eyes turned to Michael. But I didn't stop there. I played the DNA results Mildred had sent just yesterday. The test confirms a 99.97% probability of biological relation between Michael R. and Lisa Morgan. The banquet hall was silent. I could hear Tiffany's sharp breaths in the corner. She broke into sobs, her hand trembling as she clutched Michael's arm. He only bowed his head, his face pale. I stepped into the center of the hall, voice steady and clear. 4 years. 4 years of lies, of promises, of nights I believed you were working late. I don't need an explanation. I just want everyone to see. Justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes it comes from ending silence. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then Jenny, who once attended our wedding, stood first. Michelle, I believe you. Then Mark, then the Whitleys. Then one by one, everyone stood, slowly but resolutely. There's no room for betrayal in our circle. Tiffany buried her face, tears soaking the napkin. Michael still didn't lift his head, hands clenched tightly as if holding on to the last shred of pride. I looked at them one last time and nodded. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. From now on, I hope you two live truthfully with each other, the way I've lived truthfully with myself. I walked out, leaving behind heavy stares, whispered words, and a truth freshly unveiled under the glamorous lights. The breeze off the Charles River brushed gently past, carrying a soft chill. I stood on the steps, breathing deep. Behind me, an old chapter was collapsing. Ahead, a new one was opening. No more lies, only light and freedom. 3 days after the evening at the Grand Ivy, the storm officially broke. The news spread faster than Michelle had imagined. On financial media sites, bold headlines emerged. Brightfield Capital under internal investigation amid ethics scandal and alleged embezzlement. At the Brightfield office, the tension was palpable. David Clark, a longtime partner and head of auditing, discovered irregularities in spending. In an internal email, he wrote, "A sum of $120,000 was withdrawn from the contingency fund 3 months ago, without valid invoices. Upon review, the transaction was made by Michael R., labeled as Maple Leaf Community Project Support. But David didn't take long to connect Maple Leaf to the elementary school where Tiffany Morgan teaches. He immediately contacted Mildred, Michelle's attorney, to verify the connection. When cross-referenced with Michelle's evidence, tuition receipts, bank transfers, gifts, and aligned expenditures, everything became alarmingly clear. Michael had embezzled company funds to support his mistress and their child. Mildred forwarded the entire case file to Brightfield's Audit Division and the Massachusetts Financial Oversight Committee. Within 48 hours, Brightfield Capital released a public statement. "We have terminated Mr. Michael R., Senior Portfolio Manager, for serious breaches of ethical and financial conduct. His personal accounts have been frozen pending investigation. Authorities are proceeding with prosecution. As for Tiffany Morgan, after her suspension, she was officially dismissed from Maple Leaf Elementary for seriously damaging the school's reputation." She packed her desk in silence, her face gaunt, while colleagues avoided eye contact as she walked the hallway. Meanwhile, Michelle visited her lawyer's office. She signed the divorce papers, the final page, ending 8 years of marriage. The court awarded her full ownership of the Cambridge home and the Harbor Light Animal Clinic. Michael didn't contest. Perhaps he knew he no longer had the right. A few days later, the Child Support Agency issued its official ruling. Mr. Michael R. is ordered to reimburse all past expenses and provide ongoing financial support for the child Lisa Morgan. Per Massachusetts state law, Mildred informed Michelle that the case had been referred to the Bureau of Financial Investigations for embezzlement and fraud. The proposed sentence could reach up to 6 years in prison. That evening, Michelle returned home, sitting in the empty kitchen. The soft yellow light fell across the wooden table, once the setting for dinners, stories, and laughter. She opened her laptop and read the latest headline. "Former Brightfield Fund Manager faces embezzlement charges. Estimated losses at $120,000. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. No more tears, no more shaking. Only peace, the kind found by those who have weathered the storm and remained standing. "Justice begins with truth," she whispered. The wind whispered through the window, carrying the chill of Boston's November air. Michelle looked outside. The sky still dark, but in the distance, streetlights shimmered on the surface of the Charles River, sparkling like a quiet promise that even the deepest darkness must one day give way to light. 5 weeks later, I sat in my new office, a small but sunlit space, where the nameplate had just gone up a few weeks ago. Phoenix Divorce Solutions. The name Phoenix was not just a symbol of rebirth. It was my story. Someone once burned by betrayal, who had learned to rise from her own ashes. Mildred, The woman who had stood by me when everything collapsed was now my official partner. We started this firm to help women reclaim their financial rights and dignity through legal counsel, asset management, and psychological therapy. Every day, I met new faces. A middle-aged woman clutching bank statements her husband had controlled. A young mother holding her child, her eyes lost but resilient. I saw myself in them. Women who once thought justice was a luxury until they learned how to claim it. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at the Women's Financial Freedom Conference, an event bringing together hundreds of women, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and social activists. As I stood on stage, the spotlight on me, I saw eyes looking up, expectant, empathetic, trusting. I began. There was a time I believed justice meant making others pay. But then I realized true justice is when you get yourself back, when pain no longer controls you, but becomes the strength to lift others. The applause was long and warm. Mildred smiled from the front row, nodding gently, a silent blessing. 2 months later, I heard Michael had been sentenced to 6 years in prison for embezzlement and financial fraud. He was stripped of all authority in the investment world, lost his reputation, lost everything he once took pride in. As for Tiffany, after being fired from the school, she moved back in with her parents in suburban Worcester, unable to find new work. I didn't feel joy, nor sadness. It was simply a natural consequence, the result of choices they had made. As for me, I returned to the simple life I had once forgotten. On weekends, I visited the Animal Rescue Center in Cambridge, where it all began. I adopted 3 abandoned animals, an old Labrador, a limping corgi, and a black cat named Midnight. I cared for them, played with them, and sometimes smiled at the thought that by saving these small lives, I was saving myself. In the late afternoon, as the sun dipped behind flaming red trees, I sat by the window, watching people pass by. A hot cup of tea on the table, 3 animals curled up beneath my feet. I thought to myself, justice doesn't end with punishment. It ends with peace. And for me, peace had begun. On an early winter morning, the season's first snow fell gently on the glass roof of the Cambridge Rescue Center. I stopped by as usual, but today a special soul caught my attention. A small golden-haired dog, blind, yet still lifting its head at every sound. They said it had been rescued from the wildfires in California the year before, during the same time I was there on a work trip. They hadn't named it yet, but I simply smiled and said, "Her name is Hope." As I held Hope in my arms, I felt my heart beat with a new rhythm, no longer heavy, but light as breath. She trembled in my hands, seeking warmth, and I realized I had once been just like her, lost in darkness, guided only by the feeling in my chest. I brought Hope home, settling her beside the 3 other little creatures. They curled around her, as if they understood that here, no one had anything left to fear. That afternoon, while reorganizing my office, I found a small box high on the shelf. Inside was the silver necklace I had once planned to give Michael for our 8th anniversary. I held it for a long moment, then hung it on the wall beside my desk. In the dim light, the silver glinted like a quiet reminder. Beneath it, I carved into a wooden plaque. Loyalty belongs only to honesty. That night, I opened my Justice Plan notebook again. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, evidence, statements, old tears, all now lying silent before me. I turned to the last page and wrote a single line, short but enough to close the journey. I didn't lose everything. I only lost an illusion. I closed the notebook and placed it on the shelf. Outside, the wind brushed past the window, carrying the sounds of ordinary life, traffic, laughter, hope, softly barking in her sleep. And I knew my life had truly begun again. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, I took Hope for a walk in the public garden. The sky was clear, the sunlight dancing on the lake. As I fastened Hope's leash near a bench, a voice softly called from behind. "Michelle?" I turned. Tiffany stood there, gaunt, her face thinner, her eyes both shy and uncertain. Beside her was Lisa, now 5, her blonde hair in loose curls. The child smiled at me, innocent, untouched by the mistakes of adults. Lisa ran forward and pointed at Hope. "You know my daddy?" I knelt down, gently smiled, and brushed her hair. "I used to know someone, but now I know peace." Tiffany stood still, tears running silently down her cheeks. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I lost everything, and I know you never wanted that. I just wanted to say thank you for not destroying me the way I did to you." I looked at her for a long moment, my voice soft as the breeze. "I never wanted anyone to suffer, Tiffany. I just needed peace. The rest, each of us has to face what we've sown." Tiffany nodded, took Lisa's hand, and walked away. I watched them go. No hatred, no pity, only a sadness light as dust in the sun. That afternoon, my sister Rebecca called. "You know Michael's working as a waiter now, downtown. Tiffany's tutoring privately." "Life has its ways of teaching people," I answered softly, a faint smile on my lips. "No one needs to suffer, Rebecca. I just needed peace. That's enough." I looked at Hope, curled up by my feet, and thought, maybe forgiveness isn't forgetting. Maybe it's finally laying down what's become too heavy to carry. A few months later, I was invited to speak on the popular podcast, Women Who Rise. That day's topic, Women and Rebirth After Betrayal. I sat before the microphone, warm yellow lights shining down, the host's voice calm and kind. "Michelle, if you could say just one thing to the women listening right now, what would it be?" I smiled, looking straight into the recorder. Betrayal doesn't end you. It only ends the illusion of who you trusted. The only thing that truly ends a woman is when she stops believing in herself. The room was silent for a few seconds. Then the host gently placed a hand on my shoulder and nodded. Final scene. That evening, I walked Hope along the banks of the Charles River. The sunset glowed warm orange, mirrored on the water. Hope walked slowly beside me, ears low, cautious but steady. Like me, step by step, finding direction in a new world. The breeze passed by, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and the distant chime of church bells. I looked up and smiled, not because the past was gone, but because it no longer defined me. Justice begins with truth. Peace begins when you forgive yourself. The screen faded to black, leaving only the reflection of sunset on water and the image of Michelle and Hope continuing their walk toward the light. If this story touched you, please click like so more women can find it. And don't forget to subscribe, so together we can spread real journeys where justice isn't just a verdict, but the peace we reclaim for ourselves.